Hey, what is up, everyone? It is me, Laurel Portier, and I am with actually one of my favorite people. Although we were just having the fun conversation that him and I like each other, but we've actually never had a conversation. But I do his trainings. I know he's sat in on a couple of mine. And so I'm super excited. Ben McLellan, he has worked with a lot of industry leaders. He has a ton of knowledge. I have been going through some of his trainings very, very religiously lately that have helped me, not only in my business, but in my personal life as well, which is the driver of my business. And so, because we have to be good with ourselves before we could actually be well with our business. And so I'm super excited. We're going to talk a little bit about something that a lot of people, we'll say a lot of people in the coaching space, or actually probably a lot of business owners, don't really talk much about retention. It's always about lead generation, acquisition, conversions, but we don't talk a lot about retention. And so I want to open the dialogue today because I think the discussion today is going to open some of your eyes as to you're closer to where you want to be than you think if you just implement a couple of things that we're going to talk about. And so I am super excited. Ben, I'm going to actually bring something up and you tell me what you think about this. So this is a screenshot from my ads manager when I hit my very first 7 figures. What do you notice here? This is a screenshot from my ads manager when I hit 7 figures. What story does this screenshot tell us?
Wow. Well, a 0.5 ROAS tells me that you are not really profitable on the front end.
I suck, right? Oh my God.
Well, I won't go that far, but yeah, here's the thing. It's like, that only tells part of the story, right? Because it's like, well, how long do these people stay? Because you might not be profitable on the front end, but if we create a great experience, we could certainly be profitable on the back end.
Yep, exactly. Like it says that I just you put it a lot nicer, but literally it says that for every dollar I spent, I literally lost money, right? $36,000. And total transparency, I always tell people the first 200,000 I made it organically. So, but still $36,000 to make 800,000. That's not the story that the ads manager is saying, but if you guys know me and, a lot of you guys have been following my journey, you guys know that story that the ads manager is telling me is not very accurate. And what do you think would happen if I constantly looked at that story versus the story here? And, that is why I thought that Ben would be the perfect person to have this conversation with, because honestly, if it wasn't for my retention strategies, and I'm not just talking about retention in my $7 program, but retention as far as even prospecting. Ben, what stories like that have you seen as you've helped other businesses grow? What data points are people looking at and completely ignoring the thing that's right in front of them that's telling them, look, you're successful, you just don't know it?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because over the last 2 years, I've had, dozens and dozens of conversations with owners around client experience, client fulfillment. And oftentimes the story is, hey, we really want to work with you. We've just got to fix our sales team, or we've just got to fix our marketing, and for me, the way I'm built, I'm never going to push someone to work with us. It's just never going to happen. And so I say, okay, great. I wish you the best. And what I know, and we do talk about this, is, I talk about it in our marketing. We talk about it everywhere. So there's an awareness around it. But what I know is that, yes, you need your marketing working. Yes, you need your sales team working. But if you don't have an amazing client experience or customer experience, none of that stuff even matters anyway, because then you're just going to churn and burn. So, I see it all the time, and it's honestly, it's hard to watch. It's like, man, I see you guys spinning because you want to scale. And that's another thing. Oh, we always, we got to grow, we got to scale. And it's like, great, I have no problem with that. But if you slow down for a minute and figured out, hey, is there a way for us to add 20% to our client lifetime value? Or in some businesses, double our lifetime client value? What would that actually mean? And when owners can get in the headspace of that, then it becomes a whole different conversation around well, you know what? We actually don't need to acquire as much on the front end and we don't need as much team, because now we're keeping clients for twice as long, or we're able to increase our prices, or we're getting more referrals. So, I mean, you get it. But it's just, I think we're on the cusp of seeing some big changes with this, especially as the economy's, in a rough spot and all of that. I think business owners are going to have to pay more attention to, like, how do we increase LTV, but it's still a tough one.
One of the biggest questions that I get, and I just kind of shake my head because I know what they're going to tell me. I go to a lot of network events. And so I have a lot of conversations with a lot of bigger internet marketers, and, they're always looking at my numbers and they're like, Laurel, you're paying $11 to acquire a customer that's worth $360, right? Why the hell are you not scaling that $7 program as high as you are? And what they don't understand is, well, I mean, I don't know if they don't understand it, or if they're just like seeing something that I don't see, but like every single quarter we slow down the pipeline and we re-optimize. Every single quarter we look at our retention, and I'm like, what can I do to actually keep clients? And if I continuously left the pipeline on and just continue to acquire customers, I think we would spend more, like you were saying, we would spend time, constantly just switching out clients all the time. And I don't want that. Like, I want to actually build relationships. And so what would you say to something like that?
Yeah, I think it is that it's, to me, the biggest part of the whole journey is connection and relationships, and look, again, it's going to vary with the different types of offers that you have, like, you're not going to meet one-on-one with every $7 a month client. Like, that's not going to happen. But you can think of it as like, hey, okay, I can't personally do all of this, but what's the relationship that we want to create with our clients, and how do we nurture that every step of the way so that they know we care about them?
Yep. Like that's the one thing that people are always asking, like, how can you manage so many students in that program? And I was like, honestly, like, so far, like, the first goal was, I'm going to shoot for 1,000 students and I'm going to close it. That was the original plan, because I thought there was no way that I'd be able to handle it in a way, because we have 2 coaching calls a month. Mm-hmm. They have weekly Ask Laurel. So they get everyone gets their question answered that submits, and everyone can come to the live Zoom coaching calls. We have 2 every single month. I operate it like, my whole idea was, I want to build a high ticket program for a low ticket price, right? Mm-hmm. And people are like, well, how do you manage everything? And I'm like, honestly, organization, making people, go through certain steps. And honestly, Ben, we're heading to 2,500 members now, and the calls are still not full. Like, everyone that shows up to the calls. And so I always tell people, it's like, the ones that want, even though it's a low ticket price, everyone that wants to be there is going to make sure that they're there. And what would you say on average because I know a lot of people are going to, as I'm talking, are probably asking this question, like, what should the retention rate be on a program like mine that is between 2 and 2,500 students, a month?
Yeah. So there's different levels, right? So I'll say it that way, because in the high ticket programs, oftentimes we're seeing numbers of like 10% retention when someone comes to us, which is,
oh wow, like, 10% are like staying.
Yeah, which is awful. Like, we can't operate there. So if a client's in that space when they start with us, then we're targeting 20%. Okay. So to us, 20% in a high ticket program is like bare minimum. Like, you have to be here, or like something is extremely broken in your business. Okay. So 20% is kind of like level 1. We don't love that, but that's where we have to start, some businesses. Then for the majority, we want to see them at least 30%. Okay. That's like, okay, you're good, you're solid, you're meeting expectations at a reasonable level. And then if we want to look at like the all-star businesses, it's 50% or higher. And I've only personally seen 2 programs of all the programs we've worked with. Probably it's closing in on like 100 over the last couple of years. 2 of them have been at 50% or above.
So can we break down those numbers? And so guys, just so you know, I warned Ben that I was going to ask him, questions that will have personal, interest in, but I think it's going to be helpful for everyone.
Yep.
Now, when you're talking about those numbers, like 50%, is that like a recurring, or is that like just a bulk payment? Like, can you maybe give some direct examples?
Of course. So for the majority of people that we work with, unless it's an agency, but in more program oriented businesses, it's usually a 90 to 120 day front end program. Okay. So that's what I'll define as front end right now. I know it's different in what you're doing. So that initial period where we're looking at retention is after those first 3 or 4 months are done and they graduate, are they making another purchase?
Oh, okay. So we're taking them from a kind of a front end program into
Either a continuation or a back end program. The way we kind of delineate the two, continuation is either, hey, we're going to do this same program again. We're going to stay in this program, but do like phase 2 of it. And then a back end program is like, all right, we're stepping up now because we need something different in our business, if that makes sense.
That makes complete sense. And so someone with, like a $7 program, a $7 a month program, let's say they have $1,000 a month program.
Yep.
And what would you expect like the retention to be, from going to a $7 program into a $1,000 a month program?
Yeah, that's a tough one because I don't have like good data on that. To me, if you were getting, man, like a quarter of those people to go from a $7 to $1,000, that would be like pretty stellar. I'm sure you know your numbers, so I'm like anxious to hear. But that's, it's quite a leap, at least in my experience. So, and obviously it's not on just investment alone, but going from $7 to $1,000 is quite a jump. So I would say if someone's getting, 25%, that's like knocking it out of the park.
Yeah, that would be phenomenal. I will say that I'm not getting 25% of
okay
2,000. But I will say this, 74% as of right now, we kind of measure this every quarter, but 74% of people who do come into the $7 program do buy something else from me, which is,
yeah,
I
that's
think
that's
really
amazing.
And so that's kind of the thing, because like my Lean on Laurel program, which is $1,000 a month, only focuses is on an application funnel, whereas a lot of people who are coming into the thing, they're not the perfect fit. But I would probably say that we probably have a larger percentage of people, probably 10 to 11% of people who come in wanting that application funnel do convert to the higher level.
And I was going to say too, in terms of like what you guys could even fulfill well, 10% is probably like your zone. So I think that makes perfect sense to me. Like if you guys were doing 25%, you'd have to have massive support and
there's no way my business couldn't handle it. Like we have only 50 seats a month, and it stays full all the time, 50 seats, but because it's just, and you and I run around the same circle of Nick, and I would be, I consider myself a solopreneur. We just have, it's me, my wife is my partner in my business, my CEO, I'm the CMO, and then we have one other employee, and that's it, and that's the way we want to keep it. And so that's why a lot of people are like, there a lot of, when I go to these network events and, I hear all of these, big, people in marketing be like, why aren't you scaling? You should be doing this. And thank God I work with Nick and, Dr. Jeff Spencer and Jeff Moore, because like they keep me, because it is, exciting to go see like what people can see that I can do. But I always have to keep reminding myself that's not what I built my business to do.
Yeah, well, and I think that's, it's a different kind of fulfillment, but I think that's a key piece of this whole kind of puzzle too, is, hey, am I running and building this business in a way that really supports the kind of life I envisioned, and I think it's easy to get caught up in like, oh, well, my mentor lives this way, so like I should do that, or, this guru like is showing all this amazing stuff, but it's like, well, yeah, that's all well and good. I'm not saying don't aim big, but at the end of the day, if it's not what you actually want, then you're going to get to this level, whatever that means. And you're going to be like, oh man, this sucks. Like, oh, I guess I need to just make more money or have a bigger team or get more clients. It's like, no, 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 no. You need to dig down and figure out like, what is that kind of enough place inside of me that will allow me to really have the clear vision of my business so that it supports the life I want, which is, it sounds like you've got that.
Yeah, so far so good. Like that was one of the things, and I think that's just from my advertising background and marketing background that I had before coming onto the online space, that I just kind of understood that it's easier to upsell customers and keep customers than it is to go acquire new ones. And that was true even in television advertising and radio advertising and stuff like that. We would work with businesses and all of that fun stuff. So there's probably a lot of people right now that are going to be watching this, and they don't even have the basics of like what exactly they should be doing. Like, what would you say is like, because right now, whenever I started my membership, it wasn't the hot thing to do. Like high ticket was like the hot thing to do. But now, like there seems to be, especially because of, Tribe and all of these big, programs that teach people with, a membership, a low ticket membership. There's a lot of people now that are starting these programs. What is the bare minimum that you think people should have in place once that client comes through the door?
Yeah. So what I would say, and it won't take you guys long to do this, but if you can just sit down and map out, it doesn't matter if your program's 90 days or it's just an ongoing thing, map out the experience in chunks and just start with the first chunk. Like, okay, when someone pays us, what is the handoff from sales to fulfillment? And it doesn't mean that you have a whole team doing this. It could be automated. Like, it just depends on the kind of program you're running, but be thinking about that. Okay, did I make it super smooth for this person to go from being a prospect to being a paying customer client? Okay, so that's the first like critical zone, I would say, because that's that place where people get buyer's remorse. And if there's something off in how they're onboarded, then guess what? It just brings that buyer's remorse to a peak. Okay. So starting on the right foot is really important. Then looking at, okay, what is the journey for our ideal client? And this is another kind of side point I'll make. What I find in a lot of businesses is that they can start to cater their fulfillment to what I'll call the bottom 20%. Now that's gonna sound terrible. I don't mean that humans are less equal than other humans, but in any program or consulting or coaching program, like there's gonna be people that are just not gonna show up. They're not gonna stay committed. And if you put the bulk of your resources or you're trying to shape your experience to serve those people, it's going to actually rob away from the majority. And it's going to hurt your business too.
That actually makes sense. And I'll admit that that's probably one of the hardest thing to do is accept that, because this is, and my wife always has to remind me, and Nick does too. He's like, you have to accept that there are people that are going to join your program, and no matter what you do, they will be lost. They will not follow instructions. Because I'm the type, and I know a lot of my audience is probably the type too, where one person will do something wrong and you think your entire onboarding process doesn't make sense.
Totally. Yeah. So it's, I think this is something to assess, whether it's just you or you have a team, like regularly, even quarterly. Hey guys, how did we do focusing on, the majority of the clients who really are showing up, they're implementing, they're asking good questions, how are we doing on that? So, again, it's starting with smooth onboarding, just to go back to your actual question. And then like thinking of, all right, what is this journey like in milestones? Can I break this into little phases for this client so that we can set them up with clarity and to get win after win after win? Doesn't mean there won't be setbacks, but we educate them on the peaks and valleys. But it's just that. And again, even if you just start out with like the first 90 days of working with you, and then you take that kind of map that you created, and I would do two things. one, it's looking at what do we need to put in place to make sure this journey happens. And then two, is there like a visual that we can create for our clients? It's a small thing, but if you have a visual that's regularly in front of your clients that's showing them, okay, you are here, you're focused on this, this is what's next, that alone will help with the stickiness in your program. And by stickiness, I mean people staying the course, taking action and getting results.
That's actually one of the biggest things that I did. And I don't know why I waited so long to do it. And, we were talking, before I started recording about, all of the things that I've done over the last, 4 years now. My $7 program has existed. And, this year we really were like very milestone driven. And I went back and I drew up a 3 missions version of the program to where this is mission number 1, mission number 2, mission number 3. And I literally created a strategy document for every scenario, whether they have a brick and mortar business, whether they have a high ticket offer. Nice. And I will say this, that it because when you watch the videos in the back, we're getting more people to actually move forward in the program, because especially with something with ads, it's so hard because it needs to be something that's so personalized, but it took us a while to figure it out. So everything that you just said, we personally saw it on our end, and people are now coming back to the program that were once, that once left because they were so confused. And so I am living proof that what you just said is 100% on the mark.
Well, and I think it's a great point that you bring up the different paths. And I've had several conversations with different business owners who say like, man, we just don't know how to serve everyone well. And so something we talk about is like, okay, what are the maybe 2 to 4 different types of clients that you serve right now? And so part of that conversation can be, well, do we want to continue serving all of these types of clients? Sometimes it's yes, sometimes it's no, right? So then we need to learn how to filter better in the marketing and sales side. But let's say you have 3 different types of clients, like you just mentioned. It's exactly that. It's okay, what is the path for this client? Okay, what is the path for this client? And they're usually not going to look like so drastically different, but it might just be a different starting point or something simple to where when they are onboarding, you're showing them their path. And it creates the clarity. It allows them to get to the result faster. So creating buckets or different paths as needed is a really smart approach too.
That's awesome. And so whenever you have a client that, because it was something that you said earlier, you said we help our clients, whenever they want to increase their revenue. One of the very first things we try to do is how can we, increase the lifetime value per client? How do you guys figure out what that thing is that's going to get that client from, spending $3,000 with you to spending, $10,000, $11,000?
Yeah. So we always start everyone that we work with a deep dive assessment, because if we can't understand what it's like to be a customer or a client of yours, then we're not going to see the gaps. And, again, we've done it close to 100 times. And it's almost always something in the handoff from sales to fulfillment. It's almost always something that can be upgraded in the onboarding experience. And then there's almost always something that can be upgraded in terms of like the touch points throughout the program. And again, just that clarity of the map. So those key areas are usually what we find like, okay, if we just adjust this, or if we adjust this and this, we know that your clients are going to get better results and stay for longer. It doesn't mean we only do those 2 things, but we can usually see it right off that assessment of like, man, yeah, okay, now we see it. And we also have a conversation with people around like, what is it that you're hearing from your clients? Because that can be really key in you understanding like where stuff can be broken in your fulfillment.
That makes sense. What would you say, like out of like the clients that you've worked with, what would you say are like the 3 biggest mistakes that you see people make when they're trying to implement and trying to improve retention?
Yeah. So oftentimes like the stuff we teach is not crazy complex. It's really simple. And I think because there's a simplicity to it, sometimes people won't fully implement it. And so they don't see the kinds of results that we see in the people who take our advice, plug it into their business, run people through it so they have actual data. And then, it's like, oh, okay. And it doesn't mean that we're perfect by any means, but we iterate with clients and we bring people through it, and then we get feedback, and then we adjust. And that's like the process with anything. It's just like ads or sales or anything. Like you assess, you adjust, you get the data, you assess, you adjust, you get the data, and it's just that kind of loop. So it's really the people who like either sort of implement our guidance or, do their own thing with it because they think, oh no, that's too simple, we need to do this instead. That's usually where we see things go wrong.
That is literally, it's so funny. I'm laughing because like this morning with my private clients, we're having every quarter, I do like a 90-day planning session. We do the case framework. I teach them the case. And so for those of you guys who don't know the case framework, you should. It's in my $7 program. I teach it. And it's basically collect, audit, strategize, and execute. I know Dan and Nick say analyze. I like to say audit because in content form and ads, we audit the process. But my students, like, I think sometimes like the easiest things, people just have this they don't want to do the simplest things, like count how many comments they had, count how many posts they did, how many those moved to Messenger, how many people are so afraid of data. Like it's the simplest thing. And I'm like, you will have your solvable problem if you know how many posts it takes to have this many comments that lead to this many Messenger conversations that lead to this many calls that lead to this many sales. Like everyone is literally just one math problem away from solving all of their marketing issues. What do you think? Because whenever you said that, I was like, that's one of the problems that I have, even, teaching people ads. What do you think is people's, do you think it's because people have been trained to think that there's this secret thing that they don't know? Or do you think it's like they're looking for the easy secret trigger or lever to pull? Or like, what do you think is people's like aversion to simple math that gets them just wanting to go the other way?
It's interesting. You mentioned Dr. Jeff earlier, and I think a lot of times the issues that businesses deal with are because of the owner standing and operating in the human mind, right? So, whatever behaviors, past experiences, limited thinking, and they may not even be aware of it. That's the thing too. It's like, maybe they don't think they deserve to grow their business. And so they're not doing the simple things that we're guiding them on, because those would actually get them to, to an outcome that maybe they don't think they deserve or whatever. So I think at this point we joke about mindset and things like that in the online space, but it's like, I look at myself and how my thinking and perspectives have shifted over the last, 5 or 6 years. And it's just like, man, like I'm a different person now. And so that shift in thinking and being, introduced to just different programs and environments and people, and, it's helped me to now just be like, all right, here's this thing. I'm going to take action because I know that action is going to create a feedback loop for me to then assess. And so I can't just sit here and think about things all day. I actually have to do stuff. And sometimes like I might do before thinking enough, which I'm okay with that. I'll take the fallout from that because it's worked out really well for me in terms of, creating the life I really want. But I think it is that like that kind of human mind versus champion mind conversation. And it's like, look, you guys just need to be in action. But you can't, if you say that to someone, they're like, yeah, I know I need to be in action, but they have to be the ones to like move themselves forward. So I think that's probably the biggest factor in people, not getting the outcomes that we know are possible for them.
Yeah, like I always tell them, man, your ads are just one math problem away from, converting. It's like just as simple as, looking at data, and it's nothing complicated. And, that's why I thought, teaching them Nick and Dan's, case framework would be, and ever since I implemented that, just even in my business too, I'm like, wow, like I'm literally just one math problem away to the fact that like I love doing math so much, because the more math I do, the more money, the more money it seems to come my way. And it's like, it's just a freaking math problem. And so it was just funny as you were talking, I was like, see, it doesn't matter. It probably doesn't matter which, sales, retention, ads, content. It's probably the same issue with everyone. It's just like the answers are so simple. And I think people just get scared of simple because they're like, there's no way it could be that easy.
Yeah, 100%. And again, I think sometimes it can be our programming, but we can't blame childhood for everything. At some point we have to be like, okay, I'm an adult and I have the opportunity to work through whatever previous programming I had. And and I think taking ownership and not playing the victim is how we get what we want.
So I'm going to be respectful of your time, and you've been so generous with me, and I know that other people who are watching this. So one of the biggest tips that I think Nick gave me when it comes to retention, and then I'll ask you for your favorite easy tip, because like I think this one thing sounds so easy, and I started thinking, like Nick taught me this, like every time you have a step in your process, and I learned this from his R3, I think it's called Customers for Life now. The easiest way to make sure that that you're leading people in the right way, like giving them a peek around the corner, is at every step tell them, why are they here, what do they need to do, and what happens if they move forward. And just me being able to think about that, because a lot of times even when people are doing their ads and they're like, well, they're going from ad to landing page, and then the ads telling them what they need to do, and then they get to the landing page and it doesn't meet that person where they are, and then people bounce. And just something as that quick tip of just like, anytime I'm building anything, whether it's sending people from a video to a landing page, I always repeat, who is this for, why are they here, and what's going to happen if they take the next step. And it was just something so simple that not only like builds credibility, because what happened is exactly what you said would happen, and it's a very subtle thing. But it's also because a lot of times people bounce because they even forgot why they clicked. What would be the one simple thing that someone could implement right now that would help, that would just give them that one quick win that they could do like immediately after this video?
I don't know if it's going to be super easy, but one of the things that we forget about is and this is my business partner Jay's term, relational KPI. And so what I mean by that is, so often we're just kind of like caught up in busyness that we forget to slow down, or have our team slow down and go, hey, how's our relationship with Laurel? Or how's our relationship with client B or client C? Like, are we meeting their expectations? Are they clear? And so I know it's not like the simplest thing, but just asking yourself, hey, are we tracking relational KPIs with our customers? And red, yellow, green, like in the simplest way possible. And if we're not, what's the next step we can do in tracking our relationship? Because like, yes, we need to, deliver on what we promise, and people want to get results and all of that. But when the relationship is there, then everything else becomes easier, because the communication is better, the clarity is there, the feedback is there, you can iterate. And so that's what I would say, ask yourself about relational KPI with your clients. And if you have no idea, then figure out how to have an idea about it.
That is oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you said that, because it is so true. I will say this, because I always ask people before I bring them into my Lean on Laurel program. I always ask them, this clearly isn't the first time that you've invested in something. What made you leave that other program or not be happy with it? And it's not because they didn't get results. It's not because, they didn't have enough calls. it all had to be because they didn't feel supported. And it was as easy as that. And Laurel, and everyone tells me, Laurel, I know this is going to take time. I just want to feel like you're with me.
Yeah.
And that's something so freaking simple that I think a lot of people forget as they're trying to scale. They forget that, you know, the number one reason I think that even agency clients have come my way in the past is because it wasn't because the other agency wasn't doing, you know, getting them results. It was because they just felt not supported.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I see it time and time again. And, you know, you mentioned agencies. Agencies are notoriously bad at communicating. So if you're an agency, work on your client communication, because that will go a long way in you retaining your clients.
It's so funny now because anytime we go through any customer service process, I am like ruined, like no customer service, like and brick and mortar businesses are the worst when it actually comes to this. Like for instance, like I bought a Jeep last September, like a 1989 Wrangler YJ, because I wanted at my beach house to look like people are home. And they've had it since last October, right? I still don't have it back now. They don't ever call me. And then when I do check on it, they like send me these like really annoying text messages, like, we know how long we've had your Jeep and all of this stuff. And I'm just like, you know, like something as easy as an email follow-up or a text follow-up, giving me an update on what they've done, like the easiest little things. And I think businesses just don't understand like how important customer service is.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. 100%.
I am a for like a lot of small businesses, they want to complain that they don't have enough customers, but I think a lot of people is just they can't keep customers because they don't focus on customer support.
Yeah, totally. And you know, like obviously fulfillment is what we do all the time. But when I walk into a business, I'm not expecting you to like go above and beyond. Honestly,
why not? Don't they know who we are?
Yeah, exactly. But it's like it's like even like at a restaurant, right? I'm not super picky about service. But if someone, you know, if a waiter or waitress comes over and says, oh, you know, would you like something to drink? Oh, you know, what goes really nice with that is this, like curate the experience. That like, and just think about that with your clients and customers, just curate the experience, because simple things like that in a restaurant will make me go, man, they really like, they were thinking about what is it like to dine here and what would make this experience really great for this person, instead of just like, you know, what do you want? Okay, I'll bring you what you want. Maybe I'll come back and check on you. It's like night and day. And and you know, I'm not looking for the waiter or waitress to stand there the whole time and like wait, you know, take care of every single need and feed me and all of that. But I think, you know, especially in brick and mortar businesses, this is like a nightmare. You know, it's like, how are you curating your customer's experience? And if you put a little bit of effort into that, people will come back, people will tell their friends. It doesn't take a whole lot.
And they'll make more money. And, you know, that's probably like the simplest example that we could give. But if you apply that, right, like let's say a waiter comes up to you and is like, hey, the specials are this, I recommend this wine with this food, and I recommend this, and you're creating that experience. The customer's not asking you how much everything costs at each step. They're just like, that sounds good, like bring it to me, right? And our clients are the same way. Like they're looking for us to curate that stuff, and they're looking at, like, you know, a waiter probably doesn't consider themselves an expert, but they should, because they know all of the things that restaurant serves, what other people are giving feedback on. And so it's like, if we just kind of like, you know, like Ben said, like curate our clients' experience, that whether we're getting them, you know, like fast results or whatever, they're gonna understand that things take time. And like I said, the number one reason that I always get why people jump ship on programs, it's not for lack of results, it's just lack of support. And so you know, that's something that we need to like work on. It doesn't matter, because I've got brick and mortar clients, I've got, you know, online clients, and it's the same issue. It's like, you know, how can we improve what the customer's experiencing right now? Because what is that saying, Ben? If they're bad, they're going to tell 10 people. If you're good, they're going to tell 2 people. It multiplies much faster when they get bad service. So I've been watching your posts. Freaking hilarious. I love it. You and Jay are just so playful online. It's just really great to watch. And I think I saw somewhere that you guys might be taking maybe one or two, or maybe you guys have already filled that. But I did see that you guys were looking for a client or two, a couple now that you could have filled it up. But do you guys have anything available right now? And how could people, sign up for a talk with you or something?
Yeah, and I appreciate you asking that. So we have a couple of different things that we do. One is, our like one-to-one consulting, and we take on about 2 clients a month, So yeah, this month we have, it's September. So we have room for one more consulting client, again, because it's just Jay and I, we do that all one-to-one. It's very high touch. But then we also, more for teams, we have a small group experience. And that, I think we have 5 spots open right now. Like it's not because like, oh man, we're maxed out or creating, fake scarcity, but even within the group program, we do a one-to-one onboarding call, and then it is small group, but we want to integrate things slowly in our business and practice what we preach in terms of growing slowly. So, if you guys just want to have a conversation, you can go to ethicalscaling.com. We have a simple form on there. If you fill that out, I'll reach out. We can, either chat via messenger, email, whatever. But that's how you can contact us.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you feel is important, or is there anything, business wise, personal wise, what would be a great way, or to end this call?
Yeah. Well, I'll give you guys a resource, and look, I love Joey Coleman and Never Lose a Customer Again. Like it's an amazing book for sure. And Alex Ramosi does some great stuff on client fulfillment and experience. But one of the books that we actually send to almost every client now, unless they already have it, is a book called The Power of Moments. And you can get it on Amazon. It's called The Power of Moments. I forget who the author is, but it really helps you to understand like what is in the power of a simple action and connection, and how can I use what they're talking about in this book to curate that client experience. And I'm using that word curate now. So I would say that, like, I think, again, we always want to read the sales books or take the marketing course. And I'm not saying ignore that, because it's important. But if you could just start to weave in some of the psychology behind serving customers well, it will help you tremendously.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ben, for spending some time with me today. I really appreciate it. I'm gonna stop